Hi, I'm Bryce Sulin, and I had sections 3.4 through 3.6. The first section's about anonymity, and it's about how pseudonyms have been used throughout history to publish controversial works. For instance, Thomas Paine published Common Sense, which was the book that roused support for the American Revolution back in the 1700s, but his name did not appear on the first printings of it, so he used a pseudonym. Using pseudonyms can be positive in that they provide protection against retaliation and embarrassment for certain topics such as health, gambling problems, family issues, or religion. And that's the main benefit of anonymizing services is the protection of the individual's privacy, which can protect against identity theft and consumer profiling as well. And while pseudonyms and other anonymous services have been used positively, there's always people that use it negatively and illegally as well. Pseudonyms and anonymous services can provide protection for criminal and antisocial activities. People use it for fraud, harassment, and extortion to threaten others while no one knows their real identity. They can also mass surveillance by government entities, which in some cases is good, but it can be bad as well. So, is anonymity truly protected? It depends. A business can get a subpoena ordering an ISP to disclose a person's real identity. But there might be people who argue that anyone should be protected by their First Amendment rights to free speech. So there's people on both sides making it a difficult issue. Many websites are starting to prohibit anonymity by requiring you to have a profile, but people can also make fake profiles, so still you might remain anonymous, but they're trying to crack down on it. Section 351 is about examples on how the internet has been used as a tool for communication, as well as how it's been used as a tool for oppression as well. Throughout history, people have used the internet as a protection against censorship and as a tool for increased political freedom. It has provided accessible information online in countries that censor news, such as many Middle Eastern countries, so Skype is very widely used in those countries due to its strong encryption. However, eventually, governments learned and adopted countermeasures to block the free flow of information on the internet. In countries where the government owns the internet backbone, the communications infrastructure, like Saudi Arabia, for instance. In Saudi Arabia, the internet for the people there, it's like being in their own sandbox separate from the entire world. They are enclosed from all information, and the government picks whatever information they want to select for the people to see, and that information only can be displayed to the people. They use strong firewalls and filters to block what they do not want the people there to see. Iran is also a country that has a strong government control of the internet. They control all internet and TV content in Iran, and they also train cyber police to spy on all their citizens as well. Section 352 is about aiding of foreign censors in countries that have strong government control of the internet. So for tech companies based in countries that have free control of the internet, they have to make trade-offs when they operate in countries that have government control of the internet. So they have to play by their rules a little bit and have some trade-offs as a result. So for Skype to operate in China, they had to work with the government and use a modified version of Skype as a result, which filtered out sensitive topics from text chat and had less encryption, which allowed for widespread surveillance by the Chinese government. So while it's not that surprising that repressive governments intercept communications and filter out internet content, it is kind of surprising that companies based in Western democracies sell them the tools to do so. These companies sell governments tools to filter content, hack devices, block text messaging services, collect vast amounts of internet data, plant spyware and malware, and track all of their users. So, is it ethical for companies in free countries to sell the tools to these repressive governments? Governments in relatively unfree countries that have strong control of the internet and cell phone communications shut both down now and then, and that evokes criticism from societies that have more free control of those services and where we don't expect it to happen to us. But there are a few cases where it has occurred, albeit for a short duration. In Great Britain, mobs of people rampaged through neighborhoods in London and other British cities, setting fires, looting businesses, and beating up people who tried to protect their property. They planned their attacks using cell phones, Twitter, and other messenger services. During the violence, people in the government argued that they should shut down messaging services that these people were using, and the government did not follow through with that. But after the riots were finished, the British government considered seeking legislation that would authorize it to shut down communications in times of events where similar to those that occurred. But in the end, it did not decide to enact any new legislation. Shortly thereafter, those events occurred in England. In the Bay Area, a similar event happened where people were planning to use mobile devices to coordinate similar acts of violence and disruption along the BART transit line in the Bay Area, but they actually did follow through in shutting off wireless service in the BART subway stations. They say they were allowed to, being managers of a private business expecting violence near their property, so they said they have the right to shut off their wireless service. Some people may argue, though, that since BART is a government agency and it shut down its own wireless service, that it might have threatened freedom of speech, but I think in the current events that surrounded it, it was appropriate. Section 3.6 is on net neutrality regulations. Regulatory structures affect the availability of internet information available to users, and this can also affect television and radio and telephone services. These large companies often lobby for laws and regulations to restrict competition among themselves. Net neutrality refers to proposals for restrictions on how telephone and cable companies interact with their customers and how they price their services. So one of the questions raised is, should the companies be permitted to offer plans at different service levels to content providers and to individual subscribers at different price levels? And the legal status of net neutrality is still unclear, with court challenges still underway.